Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Up next, we've got Katleho from Hammond Pole Attorneys. He's also got his own section whereby he's going to answer quite a few questions for us and clear up a few things. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very, very, very broad topic. Definitely we will not be able to cover everything, but remember, there is that 50 rand that we've got up for everyone. Hello, don't forget. It's free airtime, guys, come on. And you need the assistance. Just dial in, send a message, don't be shy. We're not going to charge you. In fact, we're going to pay you for doing so.
Yes. Send us a voice note on 084 092 9990. Send us a question about anything to do with property or to do with conveyancing, because today we've got conveyancers. You might have a problem with your property. You might want to know, what do you need to do if you want to sell your property? Can they assist you? And all the costs involved, and there is one question I know a lot of buyers want to have an answer on.
But Bridget, there's one topic that actually I find very interesting.
Yeah.
So we've had a chat about this before. Mm-hmm. So apparently, if you're cohabiting, male or female, whatever the story is, if you're guys staying together for a certain period of time, you are regarded as married, and therefore married in community of property.
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah.
I think that's even scarier.
Yeah. A lot of people do not know that. But once you move in with a person, for 3 months you are done, so guys, be careful out there. If you're not intending on being married without being married, don't cohabit.
So one of the questions that I actually want to pose to Katleho is, so if they're saying that you can go and claim half of their positions if you want, since you guys are practically husband and wife, surely you can go claim the half of the property, isn't it?
Yeah. Sorry, Zen. It looks like we've got Katleho on the line. Have we got Katleho on the line? Hello, Katleho?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. No, it's fine. As we were saying regarding the cohabiting.
Mm-hmm.
Maslalisane, well, that's they call it Maslalisane. Hi, Katleho. You are live on air. How are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
I'm good, Katleho. You're speaking to Bridget. I'm coming to you live on Woman Radio. Well organized men. This is the Property Hour. You are welcome to our show.
Oh, thank you. Sorry for missing your calls.
No. Don't worry about that. Our listeners don't know that. So, Katleho, you're a conveyancer, and you can just please tell us a little bit about yourself and your firm, and what does your firm do? Obviously, you're a conveyancer, but I'm sure we would like our listeners to know, where are you coming from?
Your claim to fame, basically.
Your claim to fame, as Katleho mean success. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll break it down into two. So I'll start with the law firm itself. So I'm a conveyancer and a director. And insurance, so we quite known in the Gauteng region, and we specialize in property. So what that means is that in the event that Katleho buys a property, you obviously need an attorney to facilitate the registration of both the bond as well as obviously then the transfer from the seller to the purchaser. So that entails obviously the drafting of both the transfer documents as well as bond documents. And our claim to fame is basically we specialize in the facilitation of the property transfer. So I did my articles at Hammond Pole, and I started in 2015.
That's a long time ago, man.
Yeah, that's I'm giving away my age here. And I did what's called articles. So articles is 2 years, where you basically serve under the supervision of your director. And with that, you then do 4 board exams. namely bookkeeping, ethics, estate, as well as civil procedure. And if you pass that, then you also then proceed to serve 2 years of your time, and then you get admitted as an attorney. So the difference between us and a normal attorney is then you'd have to do a special exam called conveyancing, where you then basically it's equivalent to a master's in property law, and then you write that exam. After passing that exam, you're known as a conveyancer.
Great.
Hopefully, I answered the question.
Definitely, you did.
How's it, Katleho? How are you doing? Zanele here.
I'm good. Hi, Zanele.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. So I've got quite a few interesting questions. We actually were speaking about it before you came on. So we had obviously, so depending on the type of marriage that is between two parties, if you divorce, you will potentially have to A, buy the other one out, or B, sell the property and then split 50-50, depending obviously on the arrangement, the marriage arrangement. But now here's a very interesting concept that has actually come out to say that if you cohabit with your lover, you basically for a certain period of time you're basically married, and that's in community of property. So should you guys split, the one party could go to the other and say, listen, I want half of the pie. So would that actually apply to a property as well, seeing as that it's actually such a large asset?
Okay. So firstly, in our South African law, cohabitation in respect of property is not recognized.
Okay.
So the most important part is who then bought the transfer property itself.
Fine.
And then we'll then look at the deed. So in the event that you're not married, and for example, Zanele bought the property as Zanele, excluding Katleho, then the property would still be registered in your name, and therefore you would have full title,
Yes.
Regardless of the fact that we were cohabiting for over a period of 10 years. So, and that's where the important part of the conveyancing aspect is,
Yes.
is that all the property transactions in South Africa are recorded at what's known as a deeds office.
Yeah.
And then the deeds office then has a recording of all the transactions taking place in South Africa. So to answer your question is that in the event that the property is registered solely under Zanele's name, and we cohabit for over the 10-year period, I'm still not entitled to the share of that property.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that must be good news to
that's
other
a serious
people.
sigh, because there's a few people whose hearts had already jumped out of their hearts
Yeah.
there.
No, that's true. But then what happens if now people are married and the one party wants to buy the other one out and the other one says no? Or the other one wants to sell and the other one says no?
So in that case, it's called in law a substitution of debt. So in that case, in the event that I'm married to Zanele and we have our differences, and Zanele wants to stay in the property and I want to sell the property, and there's a dispute of that. So there's two options that can happen. Either then the expensive option is that we then go to court, and then the court will then decide either then to make that decision, either to then have the property sold to a third party, put on the market and sold to a third party. Alternatively, have the half share transferred into Zanele's name, or alternatively then sold or transferred into my name. And if there's a dispute between the party, then the party can then subpoena or force Katleho to then sign the documents, the transfer documents, to transfer it into Zanele's name. Alternatively, if I then refuse, then the sheriff would have the necessary powers to sign on my behalf to have the half share transfer transferred into Zanele's name. So that would have to entail a court application to have the half share transferred if there's a dispute between the two parties.
Okay, awesome. So Katleho, you know just FYI, we have listeners all over the world. So when you're speaking on this platform, I mean, it's serious business potential for you as well. Just putting it out there. So we've got one of our listeners that's got a question here. We're going to play it and we look forward to the answer.
Yeah, sure.
Hi guys, I have a question in regards to the living together for 3 months if you're not married. I want to find out, say the property is registered in my name, right? So legally it's mine, I own it and all of that. And me and my boyfriend, we decide to break up. Can he still claim my property? How does that work? Because legally it is registered under my name. I just want to find out.
Okay. Yeah, you kind of already tackled that one. You went ahead of everything. Very impressive.
And and I think maybe just to submit the comments that I just previously made is that there's 2 points in regards to that. Is that South Africa has what's called a legal tenure, and a certainty of legal tenure. And secondly, if the property is registered in your name, and that's where we come in as conveyancers to register that in the deeds office, that is sacrosanct in the law. So what the law would then look at is that the focus area is that who is the property registered under, and then that would then follow suit. So if the property is registered under the caller's name solely, that would always remain until otherwise changed at the deeds office. And then obviously she would have to then consent to that. And then if there's a bond registered over it, the credit provider would have to then consent to that, given the credit scoring of the partner itself. So to answer the question again is that if the property is registered solely in her name, regardless of how many years she spent living, the partner spent living there, the partner does not have a right to that property, and that's called the certainty of legal tenure over a movable property.
Okay, amazing. So then, in the instance, okay, so fine, I understand. You've lived together for 3 years plus. You have a claim to each other's possessions, basically. Is that really enforceable, or is just one of those laws that are just floating around, but then it's quite difficult to actually enforce this? Because, I mean, if the property, which is the largest asset that anyone could have a gun for in a relationship, you can't touch it unless the person actually agrees, then how is that even ever enforceable? I mean, considering the fact that you're a lawyer anyway, you probably know.
Yeah. So South Africa and South Africans have a bad habit of following what American law says, and and we're not governed by American law. We governed by common law and the Roman Dutch law.
Yeah.
And possession and ownership is 9/10 of what you own. So in the event that you do have cohabitation of assets, you need to then prove ownership of that. So if you can prove, if there's a dispute between the two parties, if you can prove that you purchased the TV, you can prove that, and I can prove that I purchased the couch. That is what governs the ownership of the movable assets. So we are governed by the law in civil law would be common law. So you need to then prove, the onus is on you to prove that you're the rightful owner of that property, regardless of the fact that someone would be cohabiting for you for over a period of time. That's purely American law.
So in essence, it's just like a fancy way of just scaring people away from cohabiting and thinking about all of that stuff. But then really, you can't enforce it practically, in all honesty, so it seems.
Yeah, I think it's basically whoever's going to get to the TV first.
Yeah, true. So speed counts in this case.
Yeah, but okay. I think what most buyers would like to know out there is, are they allowed to choose a conveyancer as buyers, or is it law that sellers must choose conveyancers? And
this is the most frequent question I get asked on a daily. So the law as it stands is that the seller is ultimately responsible to choose the transferring attorneys. And that law that order was granted actually at the highest court, at the Constitutional Court. And the reason for that is that when you look at the balance of probabilities between the two parties, the seller who owns the property has more to lose in the event that the conveyancing process fails. So in the event that I'm going to choose ABC attorneys, I don't want to choose Hammond Pole because I'm on a worldwide platform. So ABC attorneys, for example, does not fulfill the mandate that as per the offer to purchase, or for whatever reason, money gets misappropriated and the purchaser then chose that attorney. The seller then loses his or her immovable property in that regard. And the scale, when you weigh up the two, is way bigger. So what the court said is that because you, Mr. A, have this immovable asset that's in question and has a value proposition, you then choose who you're gonna have the facilitation of this immovable property because it's such a big asset in this greater schemes of things. So if anything goes wrong, you the one that elected that representative for you. So if you look at it from a representative perspective, the seller then chose because of they've made that decision, and if something goes wrong, then ultimately they have to report that to the Legal Practice Council, but then the fault doesn't go to the purchaser.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Katleho, our listener strikes again. Same question there. She says, what if you and your spouse live together and one passes on and there's no will in place? I think this is actually more because the listener actually spoke about cohabitation. I think it's more in the cohabitation context. If the person actually passes on, then what? And that's actually the owner of the property and there's no will in place. How does the law take its course on that one?
So if the person that owns the property that passes away, is that correct? Okay. So that goes under the deceased estate's environment, and we in short, I'd like to classify it without being too technical. So deceased estate is determined in twofold: is that it's testate or interstate succession.
Okay.
So testate is that in the event that you have a will in place and you then say you direct who the beneficiaries of that immovable property will be. For example, the deceased would say, I leave the property into my lovely spouse's name, and as such, then she would then be the rightful owner upon my death.
Okay.
And that's the perfect environment because then there's legal certainty and the executors of the estate know where the property needs to be then transferred into, and then the transferring attorneys, being the conveyancers, would then get involved after the estate has been wound up by the executor, which is a different process.
Okay. So
in the event that there's no will, which is in the majority of cases in South Africa, and that's why the Legal Practice Council and the Law Society previously has launched a Wills Week in September, where they encourage clients and consumers to actually do wills so that there's legal certainty. Then it would be governed by the fact that the marital regime of the deceased. So if the person is married and has a spouse, and depending on how the person is married in community, then 50% the half share would automatically go to the spouse. If they're not married, then it would go to the children as a descendant. If he had children, if he didn't have children, then it would go to his parents. So and if his parents are then deceased, it would then go to his nearest siblings. So it's very important from a legal certainty perspective to always have a will, so that you, as someone that owns an immovable property, knows and knows where your property will then end up. So to then answer the question in brief, that in the event of someone's passing, we would always read into the will about what the deceased say. If there's no will, then we would have to then follow the hereditary regime, being if the person's married in community, then 50%. If they're out of community, then they would then be governed by the accrual system, and then what the accrual system reads. If the person wasn't married, then we would look into the descendants, which is the children, and they would then inherit the property. If the person didn't have children, then we go to the ascendants, which is the parents. If they then deceased, the nearest relative, which is a sister, brother, uncle, and so forth.
Interesting. Katleho, just one short question. In a property transaction or in a property transfer, what could possibly delay? Because it always takes like 3 months for a property to register. More or less.
Yes.
What is the long story there? Why is it taking 3 months to register a property?
Why can't I just move in?
Yeah, why can't a person just buy a property, sign an offer to purchase, get approved, and move in?
I would say because immovable property in our South African case is that the constitutional court, as well as the South African laws, guarantees you legal certainty. And if they want to guarantee legal certainty, they need to make sure that all the steps and all the procedures have been met in order to facilitate that. And secondly is that we need to then undertake a process where we have all our checks and balances in place, because not only are you dealing with different spheres of law where matrimonial law comes in place, whether you're married or not, inheritance comes in place, law of succession comes in place, and then obviously you have law of property that comes in place, and also then you have municipal law that comes in place. So all those different laws will have to interlink, so that by the time we then, and lastly, from a banking law perspective, if Katleho then obviously gets a bond from a financial institution, all of those 5 elements need to come to the fold when registering a bond. So all of those legal requirements have to be ticked, so that in the event that you then finish paying off your bond in 20 years, you are guaranteed that you are the rightful owner of that immovable property. And in the greater schemes of things, what that gives us is it gives us liquidity, it gives us access to the financial market, and also from a greater scheme of things, it gives us opportunity that international investors would know that if I put 100 million rand into a development, a sectional scheme development, I'm guaranteed of my money because of the checks and balances that are in place in terms of South African law. And unfortunately, then that takes longer than just buying a car.
But I mean, at least we know everybody's investment is safe, and you guys are actually the gatekeepers of making sure that actually happens. So we're quite grateful for you guys. Our listener actually said 100%. Thanks, guys. That was very helpful. So thank you, Katleho, for bringing light to the dark situation.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody.
In ESCOM situation.
Katleho was our generator today. Thank you very much. So next week, I think we are going to dive into sectional title management. There is a lot of people who want to know, why do they pay levies, who manages and how, and who can be elected, who can be fired. And so we're about to leave you guys now.
Katlego, thank you so much for joining us. We will definitely have another section because, we barely covered, a portion of the questions that we're supposed to ask.
Yeah.
We will definitely touch base again in 2022. Where can people get hold of you, just by any chance? This is the opportunity to advertise yourself.
Perfect. So people can get a hold of me on my email. So
Okay.
I want to reiterate, I am a director in conveyance at Hammond Pole Attorneys. So they can visit our website and they get my details.
Details there, yeah.
I'm also available on email. My email address is Katlego. It's KATLEGO at hammondpole.co.za.
Okay.
And I'm also available on my cell phone. I'd like to give away my cell phone. It's
Please do say it twice.
897-1817. And you're more than welcome to send me a WhatsApp and just pop me your name and what the query is, and I'll make sure to get back to you. I think from my end is we need to get as many young people into the property market as possible, because the equity and the interest rate, the record low level of the interest rate right now, anyone should take advantage of, because we don't foresee the numbers that we're seeing right now at 7.25% at prime rate. So definitely invest in property at this given stage.
Amazing. The experts have spoken, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. That was the Property Hour. Up next is our Gabi.
Hey!
Oh my
Gabi, what have we
What a
got on
vibe.
your show today? Hey!
Hey.
Are you
Hello.
woke?
I hope you're super woke today. We're going to be talking about whether people treat you based on how they feel about you, or how they feel about themselves.
Wow.
That is interesting.
I want in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very interesting, because sometimes you feel like, okay, like, what did I do to deserve this and all that? But most times it's like people get intimidated by other people and they start acting funny, So don't fall into that thing, eh? Be yourself, stay you, be you, do you, be true to you.
Tune in and Gabi will tell you what to do to stay in touch with yourself.
Guys, we out of here. Goodbye.
Signing
We'll catch you next week.
Cheerio.
Bye.
What does it mean to be a human being? What is truth? And does this even matter? Join me, Gabaza Deba, on Woman Radio every Thursday between 6 and 7 p.m. as I interview complex and multifaceted guests on what their worldview is and how they answer questions around origin, identity, meaning, morality, and destiny. My intention is just to get you thinking. Why? Well, it depends. It depends on whether the truth matters.